Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Ben, and yeah, I know, we're already in week 4 of the NFL season, but hey, better late than never, right? Whether you're a diehard fan of a team or just love talking about football, stick around, I've got some good picks for you. Let's get started. And before we get started, I have 2 little disclaimers. Number 1, week 1 through 3 is not going to be filmed on here. I made my predictions already, and I'm 24-24 as of this recording. And second, I am a Colts fan. Yes, I know. We've had some rough years. So with all future matchups, I'm going to be as unbiased as I possibly can. With that out of the way, let's get started with the first matchups. Thursday night game, you got yourselves the Dallas Cowboys going up against the New York Giants. For this one, I don't know. This might be one of those games where you might just want to watch the first half and be done with it and wait until all the Sunday games show up. Personally, I do think this is going to be one of those low-scoring games, like say less than 21 for each team. You have the Dallas Cowboys defense that's coming off of a loss to the Baltimore Ravens, where they had no answer at all for either the running game with Lamar Jackson and especially Derrick Henry running for over 150 plus yards and scoring multiple touchdowns. Although Dallas did make a surprising comeback to cut down to just 3 points, it just wasn't enough to stop Lamar Jackson making a first down near the very end of the game to seal the deal, beating Dallas 28-25. And then you have the New York Giants that just came off a win from the Cleveland Browns. Now, Daniel Jones has been the butt of many jokes lately, but he did show that he can throw the ball and sling it to his new star wide receiver Malik Neighbors, who had 2 touchdowns for that day. My only problem is that I don't know if this is going to be a consistent base with them. But I do think that this matchup is going to come down to both quarterbacks, Dak Prescott and Danny Dimes. If I had to pick a trait that both of these teams share, it's inconsistency. But if I had to pick between the Giants or the Cowboys, I'm going with Dallas just because of the star power. And no, that is not a pun joke either. Dallas will win this 21-14. Up next, we got ourselves the New Orleans Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this might actually be a really fun game to watch. You have the New Orleans Saints that have kind of come back down to reality after they lost to a nail-biter to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not going to lie, I was all in on the New Orleans hype for those first 2 games. They were incredible to watch, they were scoring left and right, and Alvin Kamara, one heck of a player, 4 touchdowns in 1 game. Yeah, that is just incredible stuff. You don't see that every week. But like all good things, they do have to come to an end. And unfortunately, that winning streak of just 2 games was just enough to break the camel's back for the Saints. Same could be said about the Atlanta Falcons. Coming off of a win the week before against the Philadelphia Eagles. Ironic. The Kirk Cousins show put on a fabulous finale, finishing off with a last-minute drive. A great boost of confidence going into a primetime game against the 2-0 Kansas City Chiefs. That game alone, they played pretty decent. They didn't have many mistakes except for 1 interception. Unfortunately, this could have been a win for the Falcons if it wasn't for a no call on pass interference near the very final few plays of the game, which then solidified the win for Kansas City. So if I had to pick between these 2 teams, I'm going to give Atlanta the advantage. However, I think this will come down to 1 final possession within a touchdown. On the contrary, I would not be surprised if New Orleans comes up with the upper hand and win as well. But with being home field advantage, I'm going to give Atlanta the win. Atlanta wins 28-21. Next, you got the Los Angeles Rams going to Chicago to face the Bears. The Rams finished last week with a surprising win over the San Francisco 49ers, beating them by a field goal at the end of the game. And that was without their star wide receivers Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. As for the Chicago Bears, they lost to the Indianapolis Colts on the road. There were some good things I saw out of Caleb Williams, and other things I wish that he can improve upon. To put it short, he is a really good passer, especially when he's on the same page with his wide receivers. And he can scramble well. But this team is very young, and also they need to work on their offensive line, because their offensive line was abysmal. Notably when they went for it on 4th and goal and they lost 12 yards in the process. Seeing these 2 match up, I'm going to take the Rams over the Bears on this one. I believe you're going to see a high-scoring game out of this, but I think the Rams will have more in the tank and they will exhaust the Bears in the 4th quarter. Los Angeles 34, Chicago 17. Up next, you got yourselves an NFC North matchup. You got yourselves the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Green Bay Packers. Vikings have been the craziest surprise of this NFL season thus far. Their rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, underwent season-ending surgery to repair a torn meniscus in his right knee, where he is expected to miss the whole 2024 season. For a majority of the population, we all kind of wrote off the Vikings even doing anything remotely close to playoff contention. But Sam Darnold, at backup quarterback, has really revived this whole team, and now they are 3-0. Their most recent and surprising win was a matchup against the Houston Texans where they defeated them 34-7 at home. The Vikings defense had their way with C.J. Stroud sacking him multiple times, and Sam Darnold throwing multiple touchdowns with no interceptions. I know the season is young, but I have yet to see a flaw with this Vikings offense and defense. Green Bay has a similar story going on. In Week 1, they lost Jordan Love at the very end of the game in Brazil due to an MCL strain. And then they put in Malik Willis, who was a newly acquired quarterback from the Tennessee Titans, to go up against the Indianapolis Colts, where he dominated. Staying true to the playbook, as well as the guidance of Matt LaFleur, Malik led the Packers to a victory over the Indianapolis Colts with a score of 16-10, as well as a supporting cast of Josh Jacobs for running over 200 yards that day. The slaughter continued in Nashville the following week, beating the Tennessee Titans 30-14 and making Will Levis look silly for a third straight week. And as of recording this, Jordan Love is still listed as questionable on the injury report for this week's game. If he were to hypothetically start this week, I would think that the Packers would have the slight advantage, but I'm going to give the edge to the Minnesota Vikings on this one. Yet again, another single score differential. Minnesota wins this 28-24. Next up, we have my team, the Indianapolis Colts, at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, another team that is surprisingly 3-0. Long gone are the days of Ben Roethlisberger versus Peyton Manning. New quarterbacks, new looks, new faces, new everything. The Pittsburgh Steelers are coming off a win at home against the Los Angeles Chargers where they beat them 20-10. What also contributed was the loss of Justin Herbert in the third quarter due to an ankle injury. I was also quite surprised with Justin Fields on how comfortable he looks like behind the center now, more than he ever did when he played for Chicago. The Colts, on the other hand, finally secured their first win over the Chicago Bears last week. Although far from being a pretty win, it was still a win regardless. What also wasn't pretty was Anthony Richardson's passing. 2 interceptions, less than 50% from the field, and under 200 yards. And you can still see that he wants to play hero ball every once in a while. The most consistent thing on offense was Jonathan Taylor running for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. What also came to life was the defense. Although far from perfect, they did manage to keep their running game under 100 yards for the first time this season. So the last time the Steelers and the Colts played each other, Gardner Minshew and Kenny Pickett were the quarterbacks. Feels like forever ago. Between these two teams, I'm going to go with my home team, the Indianapolis Colts, for the win. This is my freebie bias, so get over it. If the Colts end up winning this, it will be because of Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson cleaning up his own passing game. If the Steelers end up winning, it will be because of stopping Jonathan Taylor, as well as Anthony Richardson. I see this as a low-scoring game. Colts winning 17-13. Next up, we got ourselves a very interesting game here. We got the Cincinnati Bengals against the Carolina Panthers. If you were to ask me the same game about 3 weeks ago on who would win, it would be instantly the Cincinnati Bengals. But as of now, I'm not so sure. You have the Carolina Panthers replacing Bryce Young with Andy Dalton and seeing Andy Dalton take over as a field general, scoring multiple touchdowns and looking like his prime self when he played for Cincinnati. It may be too soon to say, but I think this is the end of Bryce Young at Carolina as far as we know. And then you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming off of a super sad loss to the Washington Commanders. A game in which they should have won, but time and time again that defense has fallen short. Great players, but just terrible execution. They made Jaden Daniels look like Lamar Jackson out there. But in this matchup, I am going to say this, and this will be the 4th time saying this, you'll have Cincinnati get their first win of the season. The offense woke up last week against the Commanders. Now it is the defense's turn. Cincinnati takes care of business in a blowout win 34-10. Next up, you got yourself a AFC South divisional matchup between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. Both of these teams lost last week in horrible fashion. CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans lost to Sam Darnold and the Vikings in a 34-7 blowout, and Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars had no answer against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Quite honestly, one of the ugliest Monday Night Football games I've watched recently. If you can take anything away from these two teams and how their performances were last week, it's this. Houston is an elite team, but they are not flawless. With time, they will be as elite as they ever have been. For the Jaguars, there is not much to be proud of. You're starting your season 0-3, you're tied for last in the division with the Titans, and your star quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, that you paid handsomely for, is getting beat up in the backfield. My prediction for this matchup will be a bounce-back win for the Houston Texans as they get the win at home, 28-7. Up next, you got the Philadelphia Eagles up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa comes into this week with a loss against the Denver Broncos, which was a surprising upset. And the Philadelphia Eagles are coming off a win against the New Orleans Saints. With that being said, both of these teams do have some pretty good offensive weapons. Recently acquired from the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley has had a great season with the Eagles thus far. He ended up rushing for 147 yards with a 65-yard touchdown at the end of the game, beating the New Orleans Saints 15-12. For the Buccaneers, I'm not quite sure what happened there last week for them. They were caught flat-footed against the Broncos team, which should have been an easy win for them. Baker Mayfield ended up only with one touchdown pass, which was their only score of the game, to Chris Godwin, along with an interception. When it comes down to both of these teams, I don't suspect the Buccaneers to go down without a fight. I'm going to pick Philadelphia for the win though. Expect a ton of Saquon Barkley. Eagles win this 24-13. Next up, we got ourselves the Washington Commanders going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Jaden Daniels on the Washington Commanders had an impressive primetime debut against the Cincinnati Bengals, beating them 38-33, along with multiple touchdown passes and a rushing touchdown of his own. For Arizona, they come into this matchup losing to the Detroit Lions 20-13. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a decent day, catching 5 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough to stop Detroit from winning the game. The defense stopped Kyler Murray on multiple occasions and intercepted him once. So if you were to ask me who's going to win this game, I'm going to have to give the advantage to the Washington Commanders. The primetime win over Cincinnati solidified my pick. They're very exciting to watch. Even though Austin Eckler is out with a concussion, I'm still keeping my pick for Washington. Arizona has some really good weapons. Marvin Harrison Jr., as mentioned earlier, James Conner, and Michael Wilson. And let's not forget Kyler Murray and his scramble technique. But I'm giving Washington the dub, 26-16 over Arizona. Next, we have the New England Patriots visiting the San Francisco 49ers. The Patriots are coming off from a loss to the New York Jets, where they lost 24-3 on primetime Thursday Night Football. The Patriots had no offense whatsoever. I like Jacoby Brissett. I liked him when he was in Indianapolis Colts backing up Andrew Luck. And I feel like personally he always gets the short end of the stick no matter where he goes. And that definitely showed in Thursday night's game. Him being sacked multiple times, no offensive line, and late in the game for garbage time they threw in their rookie quarterback Drake May for the final few plays. The Patriots' future does look bright with Drake May. I do think with time he will become a great quarterback, but both sides of the ball have a lot of work to do. For the 49ers, a fourth quarter choke again. As a defense, you cannot allow Matt Stafford to go down the field that quick with that efficiency. I mean, I will admit, Atwell's catch was perfect. It was just the right place at the right time. But you guys had it. But I'm not going to discredit the 49ers. George Kittle was out, so was Deebo Samuel. But Juwan Jennings, wow. A nightmare to anyone who played against him that week in fantasy football. And let's not forget Christian McCaffrey, who is still on IR, who's going to be reevaluated mid-October just to see what would be a good timetable for his return. Brock Purdy cannot do it all. He's a great quarterback, but he still can't do it all by himself. Unless something miraculous happens for New England, I do not see them at all in contention to win this. Whether it is Drake May or Brissett starting for the offense, it does not matter at all. This matchup is going to have my biggest deficit in score. San Francisco wins this 42-6. Up next, we got ourselves the Cleveland Browns visiting the Las Vegas Raiders. Both of these teams are coming off of a loss from last week. The Cleveland Browns lost in an upset to the New York Giants. For as much as a tailspin that Giants team is going through right now, it is impressive to see Dabble kind of keep them together. The offense looked pretty good, as well as their defense, stopping Watson on multiple occasions. But after the first score for the Cleveland Browns, they really had nothing else left in the game. As for the Las Vegas Raiders, they got blindsided by what was thought to be the worst team in the NFL, the Carolina Panthers. Andy Dalton reviving that team with 4 touchdowns and not a single interception. Raiders quarterback Gardner Minshew, aka Uncle Rico, showed off the strength of his arm here and there, notably a 54-yard dime to Trey Tucker in the first quarter. But as fierce as what the Vegas Raiders say that they are on defense, they were nowhere to be found. Comparing these two teams, I'm going to give the advantage to the Raiders. I personally think that this is going to be one of those low-scoring games, and with the home field advantage, I feel like the Raiders will come out on top. Raiders beat the Browns 17-14. For our final 4 o'clock game, we have the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the LA Chargers. Last week on Sunday Night Football, the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Atlanta Falcons on a score of 22-17 due to a controversial no call for pass interference in the end zone. Patrick Mahomes did not play his best either. He did throw for 1 interception. However, it was the supporting cast for Mahomes that did well. Wide receiver Rashee Rice had 12 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. And backup running back and fellow Center Grove High School alumni Carson Steele ran for 72 yards and 17 carries. Way to go, Carson. Proud of you, man. For the LA Chargers, it doesn't look too good right now. With the uncertainty of Justin Herbert getting back to full health, and a team that seems to get injured by the minute, whether it's offense or defense, the future looks kind of bleak for LA right now. Nothing against Chargers fans, but this is going to be a no-brainer. I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs to win, and this is going to be a 31-10 affair. For Sunday night primetime, we got the Buffalo Bills against the Baltimore Ravens. These two teams are offensive juggernauts. They can attack you with the run, they can attack you with the pass, and they have a scramble quarterback. That's always dangerous. Both teams won their matchup last week. For the Buffalo Bills, they are coming off the win from the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday night last week. The game was over before halftime, leading 31-6 before halftime. Josh Allen threw the ball for 263 yards and 4 touchdown passes, and ran for 44 yards on 6 rushes. Side note, at one point in the game, Damar Hamlin picked off Trevor Lawrence, making that his first career interception. For the Baltimore Ravens, it was the Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry show. If it wasn't for a 19-point comeback from the Dallas Cowboys, the game would have ended 28-6. Their record does not match how they perform. This is a team that can easily be 3-0 as well. For this matchup, I am going to take the Buffalo Bills to go 4-0 at the end of this game. And based on how explosive these offenses are, this could be one of the best games to watch this season alone. It'll be a close match, but I'm going to say Bills 28, Ravens 24. For Monday night, we have our second straight week of doubleheader matchups. Our 7:30 matchup is going to be the Tennessee Titans against the Miami Dolphins. And our 8:15 matchup is going to be the Seattle Seahawks against the Detroit Lions. With it being a doubleheader, and for the sake of time, here are my rapid-fire picks.
I'm calling both games!
The best thing to see out of the Tennessee Titans is their defense, and I think that is what's going to give them the surprise victory over the Dolphins. Titans win it 26-17. And my money is on the Detroit Lions beating the Seattle Seahawks 31-26. Well, that was a lengthy video, but if you stayed throughout the whole thing, thank you so much for listening and watching. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe and like the video. I'm planning on doing this weekly now. And feel free to comment down below if you want to discuss any picks that I have that you may or may not agree with. That's all for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.